Greetings, everyone, Muslim, non-Muslim, ex-Muslim, and everyone in between. This is Readings in Asbaab Nuzool, and I'm going to begin with my most interesting hadith collection. This is number 10, and we're going to be talking about the Bismika Hadith, which is, you'll see a very, very interesting hadith. Just a little context here. I was always taught as a Muslim that every chapter of the Quran started with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, except for one, and I'll talk about that in a moment. So when I came across this particular reading, this particular hadith in Al-Wahidi's Asbaab Nuzool, it was one that I immediately struck me as quite interesting. So I said, oh, let me share this and see what others think about it. So I've broken this up into 4 sections. So I'm going to talk about really quickly the Bismillah, Ar-Rahman, and Bismika Lahumma, and I'll talk about what all 3 of those things mean. Get into the actual Bismika Hadith, and then I'm going to talk about 2 other hadith that are connected to it, and then just talk about some fawaid, some benefits from the Bismika Hadith. So just to provide some context, I'm going to go very quickly into these 3 areas. 2 are considered phrases, 1 is considered an actual name, and I'm just going to be really brief about those just to provide some context. So as we go through the Bismika Hadith, you can kind of get some contextualization of how these Arabic phrases and names are connected to the actual text that we're going to look at. So first, let's start with the Bismillah. And the Bismillah, whenever you say this word, it's a nominalization that is shortened to make reference to the formula or the phrase Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Okay, and that translated means in the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the merciful. There are many other different renderings into English. I don't agree with all of them, but they're pretty close to the original Arabic, as close as it can get. Now, some things to consider about the Bismillah. It's used to open the chapters of the Quran, except for chapter 9, which is called Surah At-Tawbah, and others refer to it as Surah Al-Bara'ah. Now, according to narrations from several companions of the Prophet, the Bismillah was a part of the Quran. And we're going to talk about this in a minute as we look at a section from Al-Wahidi's Asbaab, where he talks about that, or he brings a hadith in regards to the Bismillah. Interestingly, according to Al-Qurtubi, he is a scholar of tafsir, the Quranic commentary, he considered it a practice of the Arabs in the Jahiliyyah, the pre-Islamic times, to begin every letter or every type of contract that they wrote with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Now, a question that comes up for a lot of people is, what's the difference between Rahman and Rahim? When people see this beneficent or merciful, what are the significant differences between those 2? The basis that most of the ulama, the scholars, use to differentiate these, there's a hadith of the Prophet that says, indeed, Jesus, the son of Mary, said that Ar-Rahman is the beneficent in this life and in the hereafter, and Ar-Rahim is merciful in the hereafter. So what the ulama have explained, specifically I remember the Salafi ulama talking about, and here I took from Fathul Majid, which is an explanation of Kitab al-Tawheed by Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. Ar-Rahman, his mercy as Ar-Rahman is specifically for human beings, animals, and all of creation, whether they're Muslim, non-Muslim, it doesn't matter. Ar-Rahman manifests this type of mercy to all. Ar-Rahim is specifically only for the believers, so meaning only for the Muslims in the hereafter when they're given the Jannah. Okay, and so that's the distinction that's made between the 2. Okay. Now, Al-Wahidi, he talks about, he has a section here called Al-Qawlu fi Ayati Tasmiya wa Bayan Nuzuliha, which translated means the the discussion concerning the verse of Tasmiyah, meaning the Bismillah, and explaining its revelation. He brings 4 narrations, 2 belonging to Ibn Abbas, 1 to Abdullah ibn Masud, and 1 to Ibn Umar, which are quite interesting. And the 2 from Ibn Abbas, the first one says, the first that Jibreel revealed to the Prophet was, O Muhammad, seek refuge in Allah and say the Bismillah. So from here, from this particular narration of Ibn Abbas, this is where Ibn Abbas gives precedence for making al-isti'ada, which is to say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, which means I seek refuge in Allah from minash shaitanir rajim, from the accursed shaitan, from the devil. And then you say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the next one, he says, the Messenger of Allah did not know the end of a chapter until Allah revealed the Bismillah. And Ibn Mas'ud says, we did not know the sectioning of 2 chapters until Allah revealed the Bismillah. And what that means is that they didn't know one part of a surah from another part of a surah until there was a Bismillah that came in between them. Okay, so meaning there was a surah and then Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and a new surah would start, that's how they would know that's a new surah that was being revealed to the Prophet. And then Ibn Umar says the Bismillah was revealed in every chapter. So as you can see here, as I said, I was always taught that the Bismillah was a part of the Quran, and that it was something that came from the very beginning of the revelation of the Quran. Now we're going to see in a moment when we look at the Bismika Hadith that is not the case. So moving along to Ar-Rahman, the most beneficent, as it could be translated. It's used by Arab Christians. It was used by Arab Christians of the Prophet's time. And some Orientalists have even said that it was appropriated from Musaylimah, the liar, or he's known as Musaylimah al-Kadhab, which translates into the liar, who was an Arab Christian. And there is difference of opinion among the Orientalists. So there are those who say that it's originally Syriac, and then there's others who say, no, it's Hebrew. I am off to think that it probably most likely has its basis as being Hebrew, because it's in the Torah and it's used in the Torah as an adjective many times. And so most likely the Christians appropriated it, and then after the Christians, of course, the Muslims appropriated it. Now, Bismika Allahumma, that's a formula that means in your name, O Allah, and it was the original formula of each chapter of the Quran, as we're going to see with the Bismika Hadith. It was also used by the Prophet to open various Islamic du'as. So, for example, I remember before going to sleep, I would say the du'a, Bismika Allahumma amutu wa ahya. Oh Allah, in your name I die and I live. Right? This is what you say before you go to bed. And interestingly, Allahumma, the meme at the end of Allah, which is Allah's name, it's the vocative ya, so it's equivalent to saying Ya Allah. And this formula, as we're going to see, Bismika Allahumma, it was discontinued as a formula with chapter 27, verse 30. So this brings us to talking about the Bismika Hadith. So this is the Bismika Hadith. And just for the sake of time, I'm not going to read the Arabic, I'm just going to go over the actual hadith itself, which is related by Maymun bin Mihran. He's a well-known tabi'i. He's a well-known successor. That means those are from the students or the disciples of the companions of the Prophet. Imam Ahmed states that Maymun bin Mihran is considered thiqah, that he's considered reliable in narrating hadith. And Imam al-Dhahabi in his Siyar narrates many companions like Aisha, Ibn Abbas, and others that he narrated hadith from. Okay, and so this narration that we're about to read it is considered to be a reliable hadith. And it begins with saying, Maymun saying that the Messenger of Allah, that he used to write Bismika Allahumma in the beginning when he was divinely inspired. And he did this until ayat number 30, verse 30 of Surah An-Naml, which is chapter 27 of the Quran, was revealed, which the verse itself is, indeed it is from Solomon, and it is Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. So then he, the Prophet, he used to begin every chapter of the Quran with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, with the Bismillah. And the Arab polytheists, when they heard that, they said, this Rahim we know, but what is a Rahman? So Allah Most High then revealed this verse, which is the verse, say, call upon Allah or call upon Ar-Rahman, by whatever name you call upon him, because to him belong the most beautiful names. So as we can see from this narration, this is stating that the Bismillah was not what was used initially from the first surah of the Quran, the first chapters of the Quran. Rather, it was Bismika Allahumma that was used. Now, there's another hadith that's connected to the Bismika Hadith, and this one's from Ad-Dhahaq, and he said that the people of the book said to the Messenger of Allah, and I'm up to believe that when they say Ahl al-Kitab here, that they're talking about the Jews of Yathrib, that they said to the Prophet, you speak of the instances of Ar-Rahman, where Allah mentions this name numerously in the Torah. And then Allah Most High revealed this verse, 17:110. The verse they're talking about, just really quickly, is the verse, say, call upon Allah or call upon Ar-Rahman by whatever name you call upon him, because to him belong the most beautiful names. That's the reference that the Jews are making here. I mean, that's the reference the Prophet is making to the Jews for what their statement was. So we see, interestingly, from this hadith, is that when they heard the Prophet using Ar-Rahman, they're like, hey, we're familiar with this Rahman, because that name, as I said before, it appears in the Torah many times as an adjective and as the name of Allah. And so this hadith has some precedence to it as well. And then there's another hadith that's also connected to it that I found interesting. This one from Ibn Abbas. And he said that the Messenger of Allah was out making the tahajjud prayer. The tahajjud prayer is a prayer that you make after Salatul Isha, which is the fifth, last and final prayer. And it's a series of raka'ah, which are unit prayers that the Prophet would pray, and he would do them in odd numbers, and then he would end it with a witr, meaning an odd number. And in some cases, in most cases, he would do what was called Qunut al-Witr, which is a prayer that you say before you end the last rak'ah of the tahajjud prayer. So from this hadith, the Prophet was out making tahajjud one evening in Mecca when he said in his sujood, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. So it would be Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim in the Arabic text that we have here. And upon hearing this, the polytheists, the mushrikun, they said Muhammad used to pray to one God, but now he prays to two of them, Allah and Ar-Rahman. We don't know this Rahman except for the Rahman of Al-Yamama, meaning Musaylimah, the liar. Then Allah Most High revealed this verse. So from this particular narration, we see that, remember where I mentioned Al-Qurtubi has said that the Arabs in the Jahiliyyah, they used to write Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim for contracts. It doesn't seem that was the case for all of them, because they heard the Prophet saying Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, and they were confused here and thought, who is Rahman? Which shows it was linguistically appropriated from the Jews and from the Christians. So we have evidence from this hadith that I talked about here, from it coming from the way of the Jews of Yathrib, and also from the Christians because of Musaylimah, who was a Christian before he accepted Islam, and then he made up his own Islam. And the Orientalists themselves, in regards to Musaylimah, there's differences of opinion as to whether the Prophet copied Musaylimah or if it was the other way around. I don't want to get into that here. Maybe I could discuss that much later, but just for the sake of the argument here, the important thing for me here is the fact that we have evidence of an appropriation from the Jews and appropriation from the Christians. That's quite interesting for the incorporation of of that name Ar-Rahman into the formula Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. And so when we think about it, this verse here, Innahu min Sulaiman wa innahu Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, indeed is from Solomon and is Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of Allah the Beneficent, the Merciful, which is Surah An-Naml, chapter 27, verse 30. If you look here, you'll see I have a chronological order that I took from Tanzil.net, and it shows you chronologically from, I believe it's from Ibn Abbas, his the narrations that they have from Ibn Abbas in regards to the chronological order of the surah of the Quran. So if you notice from Surah Al-Alaq all the way down to Surah An-Naml, all of these surah, they weren't saying Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, they were saying Bismika Allahumma, and then reciting the ayat that would follow them. So I thought that was quite interesting. You know, as I said, I was always taught that it was originally Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, but that's not the case if we look at this hadith. It is considered an authentic hadith. And even if it's not considered authentic, for me at least, the fact that it exists in the genre of the hadith literature is quite interesting itself. And then after Surah An-Naml, then the Prophet begins to incorporate Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim into the surah. And I imagine then by default that from Surah Al-Alaq all the way down, that they were switched from Bismika Allahumma to Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim instead. So, what are the fawaid? What are the benefits that we get from this? For me, I have 4 of them. The Bismika Allahumma formula was the original method used to open both the chapters of the Quran, and it also shows that it's purely the Prophet's personal use of expression, and one that he must have really enjoyed using. He used it for many for many surah of the Quran, as we saw in the chart that I just showed. There's evidence of linguistic appropriation in use of the divine name of Ar-Rahman from Christian sources, especially from Musaylimah, and of course also, as I pointed out, from the Yahud of Yathrib, the Jews of Yathrib. This narration points to the fact that the Bismillah was not observed until the later stage of the Meccan period, and that there's a contradiction between the Bismika Hadith and the Bismillah Hadith. And lastly, this hadith sheds light on the whole issue surrounding the later use of the Bismillah, and of all the differences of opinion that early as well as medieval Muslim scholars held about whether it was part of the Quran or added later in its religious significance. So that is number 10. That's the Bismika Hadith. I will be sharing with you next month number 9. And until then, everyone, stay healthy, stay safe, and stay gold.